Good afternoon. We're back in session for the afternoon. We're going to begin the afternoon with the proclamation recognizing National Voter Registration Day by Council Vice President Stewart.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming so we can recognize National Voter Registration Day. We are less than 50 days away from our election, and today we are joined by a number of people who can speak to how we are going to get prepared to make sure that we have the best election here in Montgomery County, and how we can prepare for that over the next few weeks. And so before I say anything else, I'm going to have folks introduce themselves, and we'll start here with Montgomery College.
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Haydel. I'm the Acting Dean of Humanities at Montgomery College. I am here representing MC Votes. MC Votes is our initiative at the college to educate students about how to register to vote, how to turn out to vote, and we've got tables all over our campuses all year long, and especially today, getting students registered and prepared to vote.
Hi, I'm Noah Karn with the School of Public Policy at University of Maryland, specifically the Civic Innovation Center. And we've been really excited to do some work with localities in Montgomery County on Vote 16, really nice innovative project that Cohen Park did. And then also getting, we work across the state, getting students out as poll workers in needy areas throughout the state. So I want to make sure everyone has nice, quick lines.
Thank you, Noah. Daniel Karoma, I'm the Vice President of the Montgomery County Board of Elections.
Susan Albertine, I'm the President of the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County, and I can say that we have been registering voters in Montgomery County for 104 years. The League grew out of women's suffrage, out of the bravery of the women's suffrage movement. The Montgomery County chapter was founded the same year, 1920, with the 19th Amendment. We care about voting and voter participation and voter education. You can look for our voters guide. You may know this guide. It'll appear in paper around the county in October. We also have a voters guide online at vote411.org. We are committed to getting trustworthy, nonpartisan, clear information out to you so that you can make good choices when you vote. And we do this work in partnership with the Board of Elections.
I don't know if you want our comments now or just our names. But okay. Hi, I'm David Naiman. I'm the President of the Montgomery County Board of Elections. I don't know how many years we've been registering voters. I haven't been around 104 years, but for a very long time, we're very happy with our partnership with the League of Women Voters. I want to thank Council Vice President Stewart for this proclamation. I want to thank the Council for supporting democracy in Montgomery County on a regular basis, and for recognizing National Voter Registration Day. And Daniel and I would like to thank our staff, who are about to be introduced, for all their work on voter registration and everything else that we do to get prepared for the election. Today, we have staff at 6 libraries across Montgomery County, 3 this morning and 3 this evening. And the ones this evening, in case you want to go there to either register or update your registration to vote, from 5 to 7 p.m. we'll be at the Connie Morello Library in Bethesda, the Gaithersburg Library, and the White Oak Library. While we celebrate Voter Registration Day today, we'll be at high schools and community events every week, this week and every week between now and the election, and we'll be recruiting election workers as well for all of that time. You also can get information about registering to vote on our website, 777vote.org. That's 777vote.org, or by texting the word vote, V-O-T-E, or in Spanish, V-O-T-A. Okay, to 77788. I should say that while Election Day is 49 days, 7 weeks from today, the election actually starts now. The drop boxes are being installed today. They will be open on Friday. The ballots will start being mailed on Saturday to overseas and military voters, and by Monday to roughly 146,000 voters who requested their absentee ballots, their mail-in ballots, either on the permanent list or before September the 6th, which was the 60-day mark. That's what you had to do in order to be in the first batch of votes. But it's not too late if you want to vote by mail. Feel free. I will say that anyone who is voting, who has already decided how they're voting, has already filled out their ballot, there is no need to put it on the coffee table. There is no need to put it on the kitchen table. There is no need to leave it in your car. We have 58 drop boxes. This year we added drop boxes at Montgomery College, one at each campus. Please return your ballots to us, and that will work out well for everyone. So thank you very much, and I'll just pass it to our excellent staff.
Good day. My name is Dr. Gilberto Zelaya. I'm at the Montgomery County Board of Elections Community Engagement Public Relations Officer. I'm the mastermind of the Future Vote Initiative, which we initiated since 2004. We've had the pleasure of empowering over 50,000 students. And out of those 50,000 students, 10,000 high schoolers converted, and we were promoted them to serve as poll workers. We've also registered over 25,000 high school students for the last 2 decades. The program focuses on participatory democracy. We recruit students from grades 6 through 12. If your child happens to be 16 years of age, is a U.S. citizen, U.S. born or naturalized, reads, writes, speaks English, and also lives in Maryland, we encourage them to serve as a poll worker, not only in Montgomery County, but also in other jurisdictions in the state of Maryland. The easiest way to apply to become a poll worker, whether you're a high schooler or an adult, is texting the word SERVE to 77788, SERVE to 77788. There's a whole process. There's an online quiz. There's in-person training. We have it Monday through Sunday. We facilitate access to the opportunity. Students can earn up to 75 SSL hours if they serve 3 days, which is the 2 days of early voting, the weekends, and on election day. We close schools because we leverage the facilities for election day polling places. So you're welcome to the high school kids. That's why we close the schools. So it's a great opportunity to participate in the franchise. For those middle school kids, it's a great opportunity to help us as well. If you have a student that's 15 and younger, you could text the letters F and V, which stands for Future Vote, to 77788. Training will start in October. We need about 1,000 more students. We're recruiting about 2,000 students to serve in that capacity. And if you need to update your voter registration, text the word check, in Spanish as revise, to 77788. And if you want to request your mail-in ballot, text the letters VBM for vote by mail, VBM, or VPC, vote por correo, to 77788.
Hi, I'm Sandy Prudenti. I'm your Voter Services Manager, and we are working tirelessly to ensure that we get all of these registrations that you are getting for us processed and all of the vote by mails out to all of our constituents so that they can vote early, and we can go ahead and get those canvassed for Election Day.
Good afternoon. My name is Boris Brakovic. I'm Election Director for Montgomery County Board of Elections. For all the information that my colleagues shared with you today, I would just like to add that roughly 400,000 sample ballots will be in the mail this week to our voters, and everyone will be able to find all this information, texting, Dropbox locations, dates, deadlines in those sample ballots. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for all that information. And like Boris said, that will come out in the mail to you all in a sample ballot. And you can also check out the Board of Elections website. And I just wanted to do a huge thanks to everyone who is here and everyone who is working on the elections to make sure we register people to vote, that they can find their polling place or mail in their ballots and do so easily. And in particular, I want to thank Noah for coming from his project at the University of Maryland as we look at ways to ever expand voting in our country to make sure that we have more people involved in it. And so I'm going to read the proclamation. All right, the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland proclaims, whereas in the United States, voter registration is an essential step in the electoral process, ensuring that the public's voice is heard. And whereas Maryland has made significant strides in simplifying voter registration processes through online registration, same-day registration, and automatic voter registration systems, enhancing accessibility for eligible voters. And whereas Montgomery County has implemented robust outreach efforts to ensure that every eligible resident is aware of and can easily navigate the voter registration process. And whereas according to the U.S. Census Bureau, approximately 66% of eligible voters participated in the 2020 presidential election, indicating the vital role of voter registration in driving voter turnout. And whereas we call upon community organizations, educational institutions, and local governments to continue their efforts in promoting voter registration and ensuring that every eligible individual understands their rights and responsibilities as a voter. And whereas today we emphasize the importance of voter registration and encourage people to register or update their registration information promptly. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby recognizes September 17th, 2024 as National Voter Registration Day, signed by me, Kate Stewart, Council President, and the Council Vice President and Council President Andrew Friedson, and the entire County Council. So thank you, everyone, for coming today. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our volunteers and professionals who work every day to make our democracy work. Don't forget to register to vote, and then, of course, don't forget to vote. It is critical, and we appreciate it. We are going to move on to item 3 on our agenda, which are public hearings. Before we do, I did want to acknowledge that Lori Ann Sales. I was just looking at you. Kristen Mink, Councilmember Kristen Mink is participating virtually as she did for this morning's session. So she is here virtually, and she sits next to Councilmember Sales. So when I looked over and saw her empty seat, I said Councilmember Sales, which is also good to see her and all of our colleagues. Thank you for joining us, Councilmember Mink. We're going to move on to item 3 on our agenda, which is a public hearing on Bill 1424, Vehicle Noise Abatement Monitoring Pilot Program. This bill would establish a pilot program to use noise abatement monitoring systems in the county to enforce motor vehicle noise requirements and generally amend the law regarding the regulation, monitoring, and abatement of vehicle noise. A joint Transportation and Environment and Public Safety Committee work session is scheduled for October 7th, 2024. Those wishing to submit material for the council's consideration should do so by the close of business on September 30th, 2024. Each registered speaker has 3 minutes to speak. You'll hear a tone when your time is up, and we appreciate you abiding by your allotted time. I see Delegate Julie Polakovich Carr is here, and we'll invite you up to the table. I'm not sure if Mayor Ashton has joined us yet, but if she joins, we'll invite her up. We also have Alexander John Mosconis, Josh Copley, if you're here. We'll ask staff to see if some of our guests for the public hearing are still outside the chambers. And in the meantime, we will hear from the chair of the Montgomery County House delegation who was active in the bill to enable this bill to happen at the local level. And with that, we will turn to you, Delegate.
Thank you, Thank you very much. And good afternoon to all of you. For the record, I am State Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr here in strong support of the legislation before you. Just want to first start off with a big thank you. You all are serving as sponsors and co-sponsors of the bill, so just very much appreciate your support. Just a bit of context. So earlier this year, of course, at the state level, we passed the law to enable both Montgomery and Prince George's counties to set up pilot programs. And in looking through the draft that's before you, I really do think this is a faithful interpretation and implementation of what we envisioned at the state level. And notably, this legislation did pass with the unanimous support of all 35 members of the Montgomery County State Delegation. I know you're going to have heard from a lot of residents about the value of the program. Clearly, you're all on board, and I don't need to convince any of you. But I will just say for anyone who in the public who's listening, who might be skeptical of, yet another automated technology for traffic enforcement. Although this is new technology, emerging technology, it really is proven technology. There have been programs in cities around the world that have implemented noise cameras. And I think the best example that we can look to here in the U.S. really is New York City. As Frank Sinatra once sang, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And I think that really is a good example for us. About 3 years ago, New York City deployed their first noise camera and moved it around to different places in the city. They tested it out in downtown Manhattan, by LaGuardia Airport, just in a variety of settings. And they really found that the technology could accurately detect violations of their traffic noise law. And so they've been expanding. As of a year ago, they were at 10 cameras. They've authorized up to 25 cameras by next year. And their goal is to get to 100 cameras just a few years from now. So again, the fact that it's such an urban environment has been able to use this technology and to use it well, I think bodes very well for our county. I just want to again say thank you, and I'm just very excited that Montgomery County is yet again going to be on the front and leading edge of a good issue that's going to serve our community well. So thank you all.
Thank you for your leadership and partnership and for joining us this afternoon. I don't believe that Mayor Ashton is here. Is Alexander John Mosconis here? No. Is Joshua Copley here? No. Is David Odell here? No. Is Nell Rumbaugh here? All right. All right. Come on down. And is John Becker here? Come on down as well. So we'll invite Nell and John to have 3 minutes when you're ready.
There we go. I'm in support of this bill. I'd like to request one on the corner where I live. I will pay for it. More needs to be done to address the widespread culture of dangerous driving that is business as usual here. This bill attempts to address a much larger problem. I'm astounded by the recklessness on our roads today. The exhaust systems are modified to truly mimic the sound of gunshots. I find that pretty disturbing. And these drivers don't drive the speed limits. They accelerate through our streets at speeds that, to me, are unconscionable. It seems they do it regularly, and they do it largely with impunity. The ban on gas-powered leaf blowers is pretty futile when cars that sound like multiple leaf blowers drive 80 miles per hour down Connecticut Avenue on any given day, posing a risk to other drivers, pedestrians, bikers. It poses an enormous risk to our public servants and our children waiting for the bus stops. I find them at the park, and they do donuts. There have been times when I try to report it and there's no one there to even take my call, but it doesn't stop there. My quality of life is greatly impacted inside my home when I'm trying to sleep or recover from a major surgery, trying to take rest after chemo treatments, or when my kid has COVID for the third time. It impacts local businesses. I don't want to go to a restaurant on Friday night. I don't need the stress of being scared for my life when other cars are racing down Connecticut Avenue, like what happened this past Friday night in Aspen Hill. I heard that from my bedroom. We need to target businesses that modify exhausts. We need to measure disparities properly by comparing those stopped to the driving population, not those stopped to census data. We need to make more use of traffic safety checkpoints. We need our community engagement officers to readily ticket any car that recklessly drives and or has a modified exhaust on school property. I'm in support of this bill, but it's not enough. More needs to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us and for sharing your perspective. John Becker. There you go. You got it.
Okay. My name is John Becker. I live a block away from this chamber here at Americana Center, which is bordered by Rockville Pike, Mears Mill Road, and East Jefferson. Morning, throughout the day, evening rush hour, late at night, early AM in the morning, 7 days a week, we hear this. And again, like the previous speaker said, it's not only the noise, it's the speeding that's also going on here. And we have pedestrian issues here as far as in the city with safety to make sure everything's going okay. Everybody's got Vision Zero in mind. I think it's just one thing that this affects not only the thousands of homeowners, my fellow neighbors and residents and businesses in my area, but the thousands upon thousands in Montgomery County. What we have here is the opportunity to go ahead and create a model for across the country. I think the efforts that's being done here by the council and looking into this, adopting this, and going forward with whatever other meetings need to take place is very important. Look forward to that. I would suggest further information as far as getting the actual state law distributed somehow as far as you're moving forward. When was it adopted? What are the actual regulations by the law as opposed to somebody making a statement about them? And I'll provide more information on that also. The other thing is, as far as the staff reports, I have some questions and issues which I'll address separately in a follow-up. And just to let you know, the fiscal report says there's zero revenue. I have here a database from a decibel meter for 5 vehicles within 4 minutes by my house over 90 decibels, and I'm 90 feet away from Rockville Pike. 5 times 75, do the math, and that's in 4 minutes. There'll be more on this for your use in the future. I would like to personally, and for my fellow residents, thank Julie Plakovich-Carr for getting this legislation through and the hard work she did. And I think as far as the previous speaker, illegal sales must be controlled by somebody, whether it's at the county level or state. If there's an illegal device or product that's being sold, there must be some way of stopping it, because I know there are in certain areas of the country you cannot sell an illegal device on a car. And I would suggest the county look into it, or at least tell somebody like me, should I go to the state? Because that's one of the things that has to happen in this thing. It has to become something where it's an automatic thing as far as this kind of action. And with that, I close, and thank you very much for your time, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and take note of both what you shared here and your written testimony. Stephen Cohen, I believe, is online. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. Steve Cohen. Thanks for holding this hearing. And it's really nice to hear about the wide support that you have for the bill. I live on Connecticut Avenue. I've lived there for 35 years with my wife, and we're a witness. We have a front row seat to the growing problem of noise along Connecticut Avenue from cars and motorcycles. I'm speaking in support of the project because of the noise nuisance, but also it's a public safety problem for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other motorists. So I'd like to offer a couple of ideas to sort of maybe maximize the impact of the project, and I don't really know the full extent of it, so forgive me if this is redundant. But I hope the unit or the units are portable or mobile. whether it's on a police cruiser or whether it could be easily moved through the area. Because what we've witnessed is that at a fixed location, the drivers will adapt to that. And what we see is that the most noise occurs between two speed cameras. For instance, traffic coming off of Knowles and heading south will speed up right in front of our house where it creates the most noise. And then, of course, they'll immediately slow down when they hit the speed camera. So I think a portable location is really ideal. So that's one of the main points I had. The other thing is that I thought that, and this may be included, is about the need for a public education program and about the law, and it could be road signs, one of those temporary electronic boards on wheels, whether it could be an electronic bulletin board that already exists, to really let people know what this is about. And as part of that, I think there ought to be an automated reporting system. So, for instance, if you saw a reckless driver, I know that you could dial a number and say there's a reckless driver out there. I think there should be something similar with the noise where somebody could report it, the license plate, take a photograph, whatever's available. And that might result in a warning. Maybe it would require an accumulation of these kind of notifications, but something along those lines I think might be really helpful. I wonder a little bit about the enforcement mechanism, whether it would be a fine or whether it's a warning label, a warning notice, or whatever. I think that's important in order for it to be effective. My guess is that when most offenders are notified about this, or maybe they're scolded by their neighbors and the police, maybe things will improve. I think in the worst case, you'd have to be looking at infractions requiring some sort of correction, like you would if you had a broken taillight, something along those lines. I'm going to leave you with the last point, which about the state law. I read it. I'm an engineer. I'm not a sound expert, but I think the law is written as far as the standards. They need to be clearer and less ambiguous, and they need to be measurable with the sense that it can result in enforcement action. And lastly, it has to have a sufficient threshold to really solve the problem. If it's too high, it's not going to do much good. Anyway, I recognize this is an extremely challenging problem. I really appreciate the efforts to tackle it. I think you learn by doing. I'm heartened by all the successes I read about.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Okay, and last...
Appreciate it.
Oh, I'm done. Okay. All right, that was it. Thank you very much.
Hey, we gave you some considerable extra time since a few people didn't show up. Normally it's just 3 minutes, but we appreciate your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't see any of the other last call for those who are here for Bill 1424. I don't see any other folks who are here wishing to speak, so this public hearing is now closed. We'll continue to accept written testimony to please reach out to us for those who are not able to make it. We're going to move on to item 4, which is a public hearing on zoning text amendment 2404, dormitory and community service retail overlay zone. The PHP committee work session are scheduled for October 7th, 2024. This ZTA would implement recommendations of the Tacoma Park Minor Master Plan, allow dormitory as a limited use in certain commercial residential zones, remove the community serving retail CSR overlay zone, and generally amend the provisions of the overlay zones. A Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee work session is scheduled for October 7th, 2024. Those wishing to submit material for the council's consideration should do so with a close of business on September 30th, 2024. We have one registered speaker who is already there, ready to go. Benjamin Berbert from the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Before I do, just want to acknowledge, heard from Mayor Ashton, who unfortunately got caught up and couldn't make it, expressed her support for 1424, and that Rockville would like to support one of the locations and work together with the county on it. So that has been duly submitted to the record. With that, we have a public hearing on this zoning text amendment 2404. And Mr. Berbert, when you are ready, you have 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Council President, members of the Council. My name is Ben Berbert, representing the Montgomery County Planning Board on the zoning text amendment before you. If we remember, the Planning Board did request introduction of this zoning text amendment, so thank you for doing that introduction. As noted before, it makes 2 minor adjustments that are direct recommendations out of the Tacoma Park Minor Master Plan Amendment. The first to add dormitory as a limited use to the CR and CRT zones subject to site plan, and the other is to remove the community serving retail overlay zone, which we are removing from the entire zoning ordinance because the only place in the county that this overlay zone exists is within the boundary of Tacoma Park. The need for the dormitory was because we have the Adventist Hospital site in Tacoma Park, which would like to potentially expand in the future. And of course, the lack of need for the community serving retail overlay zone is that the new standards of the CR zone allow some of the uses that were being specifically allowed by that overlay zone, and they also offer some of the same site plan and design protections that were being provided by that overlay zone. And with that, we thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. As mentioned, those wishing to submit material should do so by September 30th. I don't see any other speaker here listed, so this public hearing is now closed. We're going to move on to item 5 on our agenda. I believe Ms. Byrne is here. We'll call up our zoning attorney as well, Ms. Nadeau. The council is going to sit as the district council to consider action for a request for oral argument regarding local map amendment H39 regarding the property located at the intersection of Randolph Road and Georgia Avenue in Silver Spring, Maryland, as part of Parcel A, plat number 6337, and Parcel B, plat number 8065 in the Americana Glenmont subdivision and the Americana Glenmont Apartments subdivision, not to be confused with the Americana across the street that we just heard about, which is a different building and a different location of the county. With that, let me call on Ms. Nadeau to walk us through the item that is before us today, and call on Ms. Byrne as needed.
All right, good afternoon, Council. So as described, this is a local map amendment in Silver Spring. Right now, it's about 35 acres with 458 dwelling units. The applicant is proposing up to 2,275 dwelling units, as well as some commercial space. What the council is reviewing today is just the request for oral argument. Actual action and a briefing on the LMA application would be at a later date. The council has received 8 written requests for oral argument. The zoning ordinance doesn't actually specify what the grounds for granting or denying oral argument are, but your review of the report and recommendation is limited to what's in the record. So council staff's recommendation would say if you were going to deny oral argument, the reasons would be because the request was extraneous or because no reasonable person could conclude that the recommendation was supported by the record. Also, just noting that a granting a request for oral argument does not mean you are agreeing or disagreeing with that recommendation. It's just giving the different parties an opportunity to speak. So in going through all the different requests, council staff pulled out 3 separate issues that meet the standards for request for oral argument. I note that because some of the requests had statements like including but not limited to, or other issues at the hearing, which isn't specific enough for an oral argument request. So what we're going to do here, I believe, Council President, is vote on each issue separately. So I'll go through them one at a time and pause after each one.
Yes, that would be great. I think in the interest of clarity, I thought it would be easier to separate them out item by item. They're fairly straightforward when you separate them out. And again, this is without prejudice, just a determination of granting oral arguments. Before we turn to you and go through item by item, I just wanted to turn it to Councilmember Fani Gonzalez.
I know how I'm going to vote because I read the report clearly. I guess can I just say it now, or just you want me to wait? Let me wait. I'll wait.
Appreciate it. The suspense is building, and as that suspense builds and the tension rises in the room and the dramatic music for those watching at home is played, I will turn it to Ms. Nadeau to walk us through the first item, where we'll take a hand vote on that item, discard it, move on to the next item, discard it, move on to the third item.
Okay. So as I noted, it's divided into 3 issues, but what you're technically voting on is each person's request. So the first big bucket of requests was the proposed connection of Erskine Avenue. So the hearing examiner had recommended not allowing this proposed connection. And so first, the applicant requested oral argument based on the sector plan and the planning board's recommendation that through street should be allowed, or at the very least, that the floating zone plan should provide flexibility. So disagreeing with the hearing examiner's recommendation. And then we heard from several community members who did agree with the with the recommendation from the hearing examiner that through street not be allowed for compatibility reasons. The names of those people was Cecilia Castro Anderson, Linda Bidlack, Leopoldo Viejas, Lindsay Rowe, Etienne Marcoux, and Vicky Veriani. So all of those persons agreed with the hearing examiner's recommendation to not have the through street. So what you would be voting on next is the proposed connection of Erskine Avenue, whether to hear those oral arguments.
Okay, to be clear, we're voting en bloc for all those on this particular topic to have the opportunity to have their say before us, before we render a decision. That's the oral arguments. Unless there are any questions from Ms. Nadeau or from me or Ms. Byrne on what we're voting on and what this item is before us, I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for oral arguments on the proposed connection of Erskine Avenue.
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Fani Gonzalez, seconded by Councilmember Sales. All those in favor of the motion to approve the request for oral arguments for Erskine Avenue? That is unanimous among all those present and virtual. We're going to move on to the second item.
So the second item was a request from Vicky Veriani. It was a request for oral argument on the inability to cross-examine the applicant's experts during the hearing examiner's hearing.
Appreciate it. I don't see any questions or comments from colleagues or clarifications required. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for oral arguments due to the inability to cross-examine the applicant's experts.
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Fani Gonzalez.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Lukey. All those in favor of the request for oral arguments related to the inability to cross-examine the applicant's experts, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous among all those present and one virtual. So those oral arguments have now been approved. We'll move on to the third and final of the items before us.
So the final request was from Richard Takamoto, who submitted what is being called the Brommel Engineering Report. His request is about the weight that the hearing examiner and the applicant gave to that report.
Thank you, Ms. Nadeau. I don't see any questions from colleagues about this item before us. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for oral arguments to address the weight given to the Brommel Engineering Report.
So move.
So moved by Councilmember Fani
Second.
Gonzalez, seconded by Councilmember Lukey. All those in favor of granting oral arguments to address the weight given to the Brommel Engineering Report? That is unanimous among those present and one virtual. So those oral arguments as well stand approved. The council has now approved all three of these different categories of requests for oral arguments, and we will schedule them to be heard on Tuesday, September 24th. Ms. Nadeau will follow up with the involved parties with additional details on how those proceedings will go, and we will take this up next week on September 24th. That is all we have on this item. Thank you to Ms. Byrne for joining us as well and providing the backup that was needed, the most important remarks of the day. We're now going to move on to our legislative session. This is legislative session day number 22 Item 6 is the introduction of bills, starting with item 6A, which is Bill 1824. Bill 1824 is Housing Policy Standards and Procedures Amendments. I am the lead sponsor, along with Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez. A public hearing is scheduled for October 8th at 1:30 p.m. Colleagues, just want to share with you that this is a companion bill to a measure introduced and successfully passed by Delegates Julie Polakovich-Carr, along with Delegate Moon and Delegate Stewart during the last session. HB 424 repealed the requirement that the Housing Opportunity Commission hold public hearings on assisted family housing proposals and the requirement to publish a summary of the Commission's annual financial report in specific newspapers. The bill Council Member Fanny Gonzalez and I are introducing today is also in the spirit of streamlining affordable housing projects and reducing unnecessary regulatory and financial burdens on affordable housing projects. That dovetails well with the zoning text amendment that Councilmember Sales and I passed through the council and that received the unanimous support of this body. To be clear, in this case, we're not providing a preferential treatment even to affordable housing projects, as I think we need to continue to do if we want to see affordable housing happen in Montgomery County to the extent that it is needed. This is to put affordable housing projects on, at the very least, a level playing field to any other project. These were standards that were put in place many years ago that made affordable housing projects go through additional hoops because of concerns of impacts on communities, which come with serious and deeply, deeply damaging and disturbing dynamics of what that means and what that implies in terms of the type of affordable housing that we want and the ability of communities to determine whether or not they are accepting of affordable housing of residents who need to live in affordable housing. In our community, that is most residents, almost all residents, because the cost of housing in Montgomery County leaves most families and most workers, most young people, and most older residents out. So really, this is about leveling the playing field, not holding an affordable housing project to a different and unfair and unnecessary standard than any other similar project would be held to. And it is us carrying out the work that was done at the state level, which we very much appreciate and want to thank the delegates again for their leadership on this effort. As colleagues will recall, we supported the state bill when it came up during our legislative review process. So with that, let me turn it over to Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez if she has anything to add.
I would just say thank you so much to the Council President. In simple words, this bill repeals an outdated, irrelevant, and costly requirement for HOC. That's what it does. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you to colleagues. Let me turn it to Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. Thank you both for introducing this, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
I also would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you both for introducing the legislation. I would also like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Council Vice President Stewart.
I would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. You know how much I appreciate good housekeeping, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you. I'd like to be added to the chorus and be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak. Really appreciate support of colleagues. Want to thank Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez for her partnership on this. Thank Ms. McCartney Green for her efforts and council staff along with our state partners. And with that, this bill is now introduced. Item B on our agenda is Bill 1924, Taxi Cab Licenses, Amended Requirements. I am the lead sponsor as council president on behalf of the county executive. This is an administration requested bill. A public hearing is scheduled for October 8th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. I'll turn it over to Ms. Wellens to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. The bill would extend the age limit for vehicles that are permitted to provide taxi cab service in the county. It would clarify certain language as it pertains to reporting accidents involving taxi cabs, and it generally amends the law governing the licensing and regulation of taxi cabs. One small note, the fiscal impact statement that is included in your packet is going to be corrected. So just for those watching at home, especially, you can disregard the current one, but it will be corrected going forward. Everything else in the packet is correct in terms of, you can read the text of the bill itself, as well as there's a memorandum included by the county executive explaining the parameters and the need for the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I don't see any colleagues wishing to speak, so this bill is now introduced. We're going to move on to item C, which is Bill 2024 Public Campaign Financing Amendments. The lead sponsors are Councilmember Glass, Council Vice President Stewart, and Councilmembers Fani Gonzalez, Albornoz, Mink, Balcom, and Sales. A public hearing is currently scheduled for October 8th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Back in 2014, Montgomery County established the Public Election Fund for county executive and council candidates, and we became the first jurisdiction in the state of Maryland to implement such a measure. In the decade since, many more counties have adopted public financing programs for their elections, and nearly, if not all of them, modeled their program after ours. We know that public financing is important because it levels the playing field by amplifying small dollar donors. Individuals who participate in public financing cannot accept corporate donations or PAC donations. They can only accept donations of living, breathing people. Today, along with 6 co-sponsors, council members Stewart, Fani Gonzalez, Albornoz, Mink, Balcom, and Sales, we are proposing to update the decade-old law to reflect technical updates and economic changes. I want to thank all the co-leads for their collaborative work on this bill, because this underlying legislation will allow more residents to run for public office, which in turn strengthens our democracy by amplifying the voice of those who matter most, our residents. I look forward to the public hearing and to the the GO committee work session. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Glass. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak, so this bill is now introduced. And we are running a few minutes early. I know that our candidate for the Director of Public Libraries, Darcel Graham, is on her way. So we will await her arrival. And until then, colleagues, you can take a break in a moment if you need. Okay, we are ready to go for our interview with the County Executive's nominee for the Director of Public Libraries. Welcome, Darcel Graham. We are glad that you are here. I'm going to turn it over briefly to the Chief Administrative Officer, and then I will get into the questions that we have for you. I'll have some prepared questions, and we'll turn it over to colleagues to see if colleagues have questions of their own. So we'll start with the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Madaleno.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members of the County Council, it's a pleasure to be before you to present Darcel Graham, our nominee for the Director of the Montgomery County Public Libraries. I first want to thank Anita Vassallo for her years of service to this community. When she retired, she actually had been with the library system for more than 50 years, having started as a high school student in Silver Spring and holding every position across libraries. And so the people of Montgomery County were well served by Anita for all those years. And we're thrilled to have someone who has a very similar background in Darcel Graham. When we went out to look for a library director, it's always important to note for you all who know this and for the community at large, our library system is something different than every other library system in the state of Maryland. We're the only library system that is actually part of the county government. It's not a separate entity governed by its own board. In these unusual times when there are cultural wars seemingly about lots of books and who should have access and when to books, our library system was a very exciting opportunity for people because you don't have that community board that is overlooking or looking over everyone's shoulder. You have the county executive and the county council. And so we got an enormous number of applicants from all over the country who were interested in this position. And through a rigorous interview process, multiple rounds, we found somebody who we believe is an outstanding candidate and was right from our backyard, having spent her entire career in Baltimore City in the Enoch Pratt Free Library System. So Ms. Graham has in many ways a resume very similar to Anita's. She has done every job in the Baltimore City Public Libraries and worked her way up to the deputy director and the acting, I think, executive director right now for that library system, which is one of the oldest public library systems in the country. She is a native of Baltimore. She has her bachelor's degree from the University of Baltimore. And in fact, the library system, as a city employee, she got scholarships to go to the University of Baltimore, as she got her master's degree from Pitt with a scholarship from the library system. So libraries, as you know, as you will hear her in her testimony, libraries changed her life fundamentally. Yeah. And she believes in that ability of libraries to change people's lives. She impressed us all with her vision for how a library can interact with everyone in an entire community, from children to seniors, creatively addressing issues that we know libraries have had with people who come in with a variety of needs and they're looking for an open door and a warm reception, even though it may not be necessarily looking for a book. So again, I think you will find her to be the exciting, thoughtful, visionary leader that we have grown accustomed to and that will lead our library system to even further progress and acclaim for around the country and certainly around our community. So it's an honor to present to you Darcel Graham, the County Executive's nominee for the Director of the Montgomery County Public Library System.
Thank you and welcome. We're going to dive right into our questions, which will give you an opportunity to expound a bit on the great words about you that we just heard from the Chief Administrative Officer. The first question, how has your career prepared you to succeed as the Director of Public Libraries for Montgomery County?
Oh, thank you for the question, and I'm so humbled and appreciative to be here before you today. Rich kind of mentioned a little bit, and he shared a lot. I spent 26 years in Baltimore system. the epitome of a public servant, starting very humbly in circulation and working there for many years and articulating through the system, working in almost every single public service job there is. The last 10, 15 years, I've been in management, where I oversee the library's $62 million plus budget that comes from 3 revenue sources right now. I also, in this interim role, am acting as the library's COO, so now I oversee all the operational activities of the library as well, and still serving in my current capacity, my full-time job as the VP of Public Service. And I think in that vein, I've oversaw all of our fantastic programs that we do in Baltimore and as Maryland State Library as well. And that also includes the management of our 22 locations, all of the public-facing services that we have, as well as the behind-the-scenes services.
Thank you very much. What do you see as the top 3 issues facing Montgomery County Public Libraries over the next several years?
So I think facing libraries in general is an evolving workforce. The need for the workforce to not only be developed in a way that can currently address the technology advancements and challenges in our communities, but also a workforce that is supported and seen and heard and valued. I think the evolving workforce in our profession will dictate a multiple of strategies, looking at a very diverse workforce, and that's including everything from a BIPOC community that's very engaged, a community that works in the library that looks like the people we serve, as well as making sure that we are valuing everyone's experience in addition to everyone's advanced degree. So a changing workforce is one. I think another one is going to be the evolving community needs and how we look to the community to identify what their needs are and how we're willing to meet them where they're at. And then finally, I would say, because our libraries are traditional brick and mortar buildings, how to transform those spaces in ways that can really support the community needs in the way they need them. So how to innovatively look at our spaces to be dynamic, engaging, and as well as comfortable and exciting.
Thank you. Libraries can fulfill a community role of so-called second responders by providing safe spaces for residents beyond the traditional role of material book lending. Yeah. In what ways do you believe the county library system currently fills this role, and how can the council partner with you in coming years to enhance the role of libraries as community hubs?
I think the council and the library can work collaboratively to help to engage community assets and make them available in the library spaces. The library, as the last true place of civic discourse, has a lot of opportunity for other community resource and county resources to be offered throughout its locations. I do believe that if we strategically partner with other agencies to provide services like social work or housing assistance or lawyer in the library and things like that, I think the council can be advantageous in creating and connecting those resources.
Thank you. What specific experience do you have implementing and overseeing workforce and programming through a racial equity and social justice lens? And how will you manage and cultivate the materials available within the library system to meet the diverse needs of the county's residents?
We have in libraries always supported DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I believe that also starts with a workforce that is very inclusive of the BIPOC and many other communities. We strategically advocate and look and work with HR to identify strategies that not only incorporates that community, but also welcomes in communities that are sometimes left behind. Taking strategies and approaches to look at communities that are reentering our workforce and having the library be the gateway into a successful and long-term relationship, I think is another way to go. Some of the programs that I have initiated and led in regards to social justice and DEI is we offer DEI conferences statewide. We offer conferences for the intellectually challenged, as well as for the differently, or I would say, the communities that are unseen, unhoused, social justice, reentry. We have a number of programs existing right now that we offer to our communities and solicit participation from those communities. We also do some of the traditional programs libraries do, like Drag Queen Storytime. We do a huge kickoff for Black History Month, where it's like a author and 600 plus community members. We do senior programming, or like I like to say, the Young at Heart programming, like senior tech and AI, and introducing them to those new technologies, as well as a number of programs for our teens. We have a teen reentry. We have a teen entrepreneurship. We currently have a studio space, and we do a lot of teen programming that supports what we call the teen side hustle, and getting them to some opportunities to make a second income. So I like to think that it may look a little different here in Montgomery County, and understanding what the community needs and really adapting programs that support the community. I know that you have a very knowledge and capable staff, so leaning to them for some of their recommendations and what has worked and what hasn't, and together create that dynamic programming.
Thank you. Are there any current or potential conflicts of interest of which the council should be aware?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Those are all my prepared questions. Now I'll turn it to my colleagues, starting with Councilmember Sales.
Thank you again for applying and even considering moving to Montgomery County to take over our public library system. Just a quick question. Given the new technological advancements like artificial intelligence and 3D printing, how do libraries evolve to embrace these transformations while still remaining a free, vital, and safe resource accessible to all in our communities?
Oh, thank you for that. I think we have to continue to invest in professional development of staff, training them on these new technologies and making sure that they first are aware and comfortable, and then helping to provide that trainer where then they go and educate the community. I think it's important, especially for communities that sometimes get left behind, that we as libraries stay up to date on those skills. If not, then as that safe place where especially our Young at Heart will come to for those resources, we will have failed them if we are not up to date. So I do believe that as a staff that is trained and have opportunities for professional development is going to be important to stay ahead of the curve.
Thank you, Ms. Graham.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Graham, nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for wanting to bring your talents to Montgomery County. And there are a lot of excited people waiting for you.
Oh, thank you.
I had a meeting just this morning in my office, and the woman, the constituent, said that she was excited to watch this conversation. And I said, you don't have to stay in the building until 2:20. You can watch it on YouTube. So,
Yeah.
Aileen, if you're watching, here's the conversation. Regarding the teen programs that you were referring
Yes.
to prior to being on the council, I ran an after-school youth program that partnered pretty much exclusively with the libraries, doing so much work. One of the things I did last was help raise private funds to open up space in the McGee Silver Spring Library. So I look forward to you learning more about Action Youth Media and the work that's being done with a variety of partners throughout the county. Great nonprofit positive youth development support system here. But the question I have for you, and gets back to a point that Mr. Madaleno talked about earlier, about the function of libraries being a county function.
Yes.
Not subject to the whims and politics of an outside board. Unfortunately, libraries have become places of disagreement rather than places of learning. And as we have worked to maintain Montgomery County's ability to learn and live as one chooses, I want you to share a little bit more about your philosophy on what kind of safe spaces libraries should be, how you will work to make them environments safe for everybody, and I'll end there.
Thank you for that. You're absolutely right. I think it's important to prioritize the safety and security of our staff that are working in our spaces, and thereby as well as our community that visit our spaces. One thing that I have learned is that we as librarians are not quite trained or equipped to be security personnel or personnel with mental health experience. And so I think through smart strategic partnerships and working across the county to utilize resources that already exist, like having social workers in the library, I think will help mitigate some of the challenges of our community members that unfortunately are suffering from mental illness. I think working with housing to have people that can actually get people to direct housing will also help to mitigate some of the distress. And I say distress, I think because there's frustration that we can't answer some of those questions other than to point them to the resource itself. And what they need is somebody to point them to the actual resource, not just the website where they can apply for those resources. I know that this goes a long way in supporting the staff because it allows the staff to really focus and concentrate on their everyday job and not try to serve as a social worker or security personnel or a housing navigator. So I really think learning about the county system, and you have a wealth of resources amongst the different county agencies, having them have connection and presence in the branch will help the staff feel more safe in the community, more connected to the resources that they really need. And last but not least, making sure that we have the adequate number of security personnel to also ensure that the staff feels safe.
I appreciate that because there are and have been a number of facilities, branches where staff are now being tasked with providing health and human services functions because a number of unhoused individuals are spending all day there.
Yeah.
And it is tricky, but we do have a large social safety net here. And I know that the Chief Administrative Officer sitting next to you will help point you in the right direction to make sure that those who need help get it. Those who want to read in silence can do that too.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Balco.
Thank you. It's so nice to see you again, and thank you for the time that you've taken with each of us. And I appreciate the question that Councilmember Glass raised in terms of the very unique role that libraries play in safety. And I think one of the reasons why libraries are asked to do so much wraparound service is because you're seen as a safe, trusting place. And I appreciate in our conversation, you were very proactive in having that discussion. I appreciate that. So our great strength in Montgomery County is our diversity, and we have many libraries. I have 3 libraries in my district and another one coming. And so each community is the same in that we love and support our libraries, but all of our communities are different. And so how will you, with a system this large, and you come from a large system, look at providing the basic needs that every community needs and wants, but also looking at the diversity of communities and looking at programming and staffing for our unique communities throughout our large county?
Yeah, I think that's really important to look at each branch in the community as separate. I don't think one generic policy fits every library situation in every community. So I think taking a look at the data what branch is circulating, what types of books, taking a look at the programming, making sure that it's not just at the right time, but the right presenter. If it's a bilingual staff person that's required, factoring that as well. And then most importantly, also getting staff feedback. They're the experts. They work in the community. They can kind of tell you what the data can't. When a person comes in to use the branch and we don't have what they need, that will not show up in any kind of data. And so really working with the staff and their expertise and their experience and working in their branches every day, but utilizing the data to not only determine what types of books, but where the books should be as well. I think it's a holistic approach, but I also think that having that independence of every community will dictate what that branch should be offering and what that collection looks like. And I think staff as well. So if you have a community that is primarily for caregivers in the morning, and then that community after 5 switches, then the staff should also represent that as well. The programming should support that as well. So I think really looking at it independently of each community and every culture that's in that community and let that dictate the services.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Fleming Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here and for deciding to work in Montgomery County. I love Baltimore. I went to college in Baltimore, and I know the library that you worked very well. I would say 2 things. One, the way I see libraries, they are the heart of the community. That's where you meet up your friends. That's where you gather. That's where you take, your COVID-19 test. That's where you take, you go, you vote, You do so many things at the library. When I came to this country, I spent a lot of time on the Long Branch Library because it was close to my home in Langley Park. And it's a place where I felt safe and where my mom could feel okay leaving me alone for a few hours. So you have a huge responsibility leading the libraries in Montgomery County. The other thing I want to highlight is just because I have my friend Ari Brooks in the back. Friends of the Library, it's in my heart. I was a member before I was a county council member, and they do so many events connecting community, and I hope that relationship between you and the Friends of the Library actually becomes stronger because this is a group that is led by community members. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's not staff, it's community members. Yeah. And I know in the next month, because we have Hispanic Heritage Month, I have a whole bunch of events going at different libraries, including the Aspen Hill Library. I think that's next week. They're playing Encanto. I love that movie, so I'm going to speak right before. And all that to say is that libraries are, like I said, it's the heart of the communities where people feel welcome and love. Yeah. And you have you can find in each one of us here people that can be your partner. Don't feel that this is just you, because I think, especially with the libraries, more than even the rec centers, you need partnerships. I do a lot of stuff at the Wheaton Library. I have an event next week, and I have a great relationship with their staff. I depend on them, and anyway, you have this is a nice gig that you're gonna get. So don't mess it up.
Oh, thank you. I won't.
Thank you.
I definitely don't take it for granted. I will tell you, one of the things that are absolutely appealing about Montgomery County is I can tell that the county supports the library and the community supports the library, because you guys have some of the highest usage in the state of Maryland. And so that tells me that they support, and the staff is already doing an amazing job. And I just look to augment that and help support that. And I think that working together, and I've always had a fantastic relationship with Baltimore City's Council. I look forward to the partnership with each and every one of you. And so for that being said, I definitely won't take it for granted, and I'm super excited about the opportunity.
All right, TLDR, our county supports our libraries and our residents love our libraries. Yeah. Let me turn it to Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am so happy to see you in person.
Thank you.
And was so excited to learn of your willingness to share your time, talent, and experience that you've had over the multiple decades in Baltimore City with us. And as we spoke yesterday, I lived in Baltimore City for a decade and spent a considerable amount of time in the most cavernous branch of the library, which was the main branch, and also had my neighborhood branch in Federal Hill. And you've had the ability to work across the spectrum. And I know my colleagues have talked about the people parts, which are also incredibly important to me. But I wanted you to have the opportunity to talk about your experiences that you've had with being able to manage the physical space of these vastly different buildings in different parts of the city with vastly different neighborhoods and different qualities and characteristics.
Well, thank you for that. I think that Baltimore supports and loves their libraries, but the financial resources are limited. And as such, we've had to be very strategic about the way we utilize resources. And we were fortunate enough to receive some art-related funding that we took the opportunity to not only provide some much-needed infrastructure improvements like HVAC, but really took the time to look at 7 individual branches, using those resources and do some refreshes of our spaces, creating awesome community living rooms for the place in the community to gather and just be free and have those conversations, but also taking a look at the collections, what we needed to update, making sure we had, again, for safety and security, clear sight lines so that staff can see across the buildings, and making sure that those buildings represented those communities. So that's just an example of some of the things we've done, individualized in our communities.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to having you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Councilmember Albornoz.
Hello.
Hello.
It sounds like we had a similar experience in meeting all of our colleagues. We all had wonderful impressions of our opportunity to speak with you. So thank you. And as you stated, you, I think, very much understand how important this position is to the county as a whole and the important role that our libraries plays in our entire system. So as we discussed in our conversation, I sat not in that exact same seat, but also in an executive branch seat for 12 years and talked about the importance of partnerships and alliances. Could you just expand on that as much as you'd like on the partnerships that you'd like to seek, first with sister county agencies and then with our community?
Yeah, I think having strategic partnerships with the school is important. Their community is our community. They're in our spaces after school, making sure that we can align with what they're doing inside the school, and we can support that, as well as having some presence in the school. So I think having strategic partnerships like with the school, I think Recs and Parks is also a great opportunity. I know that Wheaton is a co-located space, and making sure that the staff is one band, one sound, making sure that the community member comes in and regardless of what service they're there for, that we are welcomed. And we are all educated on what that building has to offer. So those are just 2 examples of how I think strategic partnerships across the county agencies are important. But I think it's also equally important to have a partnership with our community members. For instance, the Friends Group, I think, could offer some valuable feedback, can tell us what works, and equally as important, can tell us what doesn't work. I know that's a volunteer position that they definitely are devoted to, and when you devote your time and talents free of charge, I think there's something said to making sure that their voices are also heard and valued, and making sure that all of our other community assets are valued. So you got for-profits too. What are they doing in their space? In the eventuality that we're renovating and we need to co-locate a space, is there a community partner or a for-profit that we can have some resemblance of service, be it a book locker, be it some books that the community can pick up? I think it's also equally as valuable.
Thank you. That's music to my ears. I look forward to working with you. So I worked closely with Parker Hamilton, and because our tenures crossed, and we did some pretty cool things together. So those partnerships are important. I guess obviously it's a wonderful opportunity for you to have a fresh set of eyes coming from an outside jurisdiction, but also will be challenging because you're going to have to meet lots of the staff and learn names and be able to hit the ground running. Could you just describe, while we're in a public setting, for the incredible team that you're going to be inheriting, what your vision is as a manager of the library's department of the staff?
I do lead by example. I would not, dare not ask the staff to engage in a new activity or service. It's something that I myself haven't done or wouldn't do. I'm very hands-on and very personable. I do have an open door policy, and I do plan on being physically present to support the staff. I look forward to, which I know some staff already, because Maryland is very collaborative and we work together all the time. But I look forward to meeting the rest, and I'm open and I remain curious, and I don't come in with any preconceived notions that I know everything about the way it works here. So just being open and collaborative and listening and making sure that what I ask for feedback, I can in some way, shape, or form implement that, and being very transparent. And that's just the way I lead. I am a visionary leader with a leading by my heart. And I think I have the unique experience of having worked at very, very, very entry-level positions and being able to advocate for the staff.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're
I yield back
welcome.
to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Before turning to Councilmember Katz, let's try to turn it to our lead for libraries on this topic that is certainly near and dear to her heart. So we'll turn it to Zoom with Councilmember Mink.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Ms. Graham. It's been great getting to know you and discuss some of our library system's many strengths and some of our challenges, and learning about the depth of your experiences and skills and knowledge base that you would bring to the county. I will say that I've been extremely impressed. I've been looking forward to this public conversation. I have two questions, so I'll just give them to you back to back if that's okay, and then I'll let you, use the time how you'd like. So. Question one is about our unions. We're very proud here that our library staff are unionized, and as you mentioned, ensuring the voices of our staff are heard and respected, and that leadership is not only responsive but proactively engaged at the staff level has to be treated as an essential part of our recruitment and retention strategy. So could you talk about if and how you've already been able to engage with the union and how you'll build out and expand on those staff level communications and collaboration? And then question number two is about youth engagement, something that's been a major priority of NCPL, one of the topics that we've talked about, and a particularly challenging aspect of it, which is that we do have some branches that are near secondary schools, which is, of course, exactly what we want. That said, when young people gather there en masse, sometimes during the school day, that's a problem, can be a problem, and it can be very difficult for library staff to manage. So can you talk about any strategies regarding this particular issue that you're considering for exploration here?
Sure. So Baltimore is also not a unionized environment yet, but are actively going through unionization right now. It's a process that we've been going through for almost 2 years. We initially, right at the very beginning, recognized the staff's right to unionize and honored that and have been bargaining in good faith. And I think the challenge in Baltimore specifically is the complex budget and financial support that the city receives, and not being a full city agency and being a quasi and a nonprofit has created some obstacles. But we have been definitely bargaining in good faith and really acknowledging the need for staff to unionize and supporting that. And I think that with the relationship that we have, and I personally have with staff, we've been able to make strides in that effort, and we anticipate that we'll be at a contract soon. So I welcome the opportunity to work with the union. We all have the same vision and mission in mind, and we all want to serve our community, and we all want our staff to be safe, and we all want equitable pay. And I think as long as we keep that vision and mission, the one that we share in mind, I think anything else we can work through. So I look forward to working with the union. And look forward to receiving a lot of staff feedback I know they're anxious and they want to share some things. So I think it's definitely okay, and I want to hear the bad things. I think that's what's going to make us better. So that, and then the youth engagement part is really critical, because we also, public libraries across the country have that same challenge with our rambunctious teens and a lot of the energy that they bring after schools. And one of the things that I would be interested in exploring here, that has been absolutely successful in Baltimore, is working with the schools a little more closely and making sure that maybe we align with some of the structure that they have. One of the ways that we found a lot of success is attending like the parent-teacher conference night, the back-to-school events, and really engaging the parents and setting up curriculum similar to very structured programming after school where the child comes in, get a snack, and then there's a structured program for an hour or two, and then some free play. And that has helped curtail a lot of curiosity in the branch. And I also think that having the school also have a presence. Coming in, the principals come in, they program with us. We go in the schools and program with them. We also have a lot of literacy programs that we partner with the school on. So I think just intentionally having presence in both the school and the libraries and working together with the school system to provide the staff that additional support that's needed, I think would be a strategy that I would like to explore here in Montgomery County.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll turn it to Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ms. Graham, it's good seeing you again. We enjoyed the chat that we had by Zoom not too long ago. And I was extremely impressed that day, and today has been no different. As you mentioned, as has been mentioned, I guess, by my colleagues, libraries mean something different to everybody that uses them. Yeah. There are people that obviously go into the brick and mortar part of the facilities, and some never enter the building. Some strictly use it by technology. And not that you need to answer today, and I guess over time it changes anyhow, but please continue to work with your staff, the community, friends of the library, everybody who's associated with the libraries, especially your staff and community and the friends, to make certain that we're keeping up with technology. And please do not, and every now and then, it's not every day, but every now and then, we get a concern about, obviously, the safety inside the libraries. Yeah. We get a concern about some of the facilities get a little bit more shop worn than we would like, and we need to stay in front of that as well. Yeah. But I was impressed with you the day we met, and I look forward to voting for you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other colleagues in the queue. We really appreciate you joining us here. Thank you to the county executive and the CAO for putting this nomination forward, and we will be in touch in short order.
Thank you for the opportunity.
If I may, Mr. President, I do want to take a moment to thank Angelisa Hawes, who has been leading the library system as the acting director over the last several months, and of course, all of the amazing staff and volunteers across the library system for keeping everything up and running seamlessly. The last several years have been a remarkable transformation for our library system, taking on test kits and mass delivery and expanded hours and more services. And they've worked so hard to make sure we've delivered all of those services and met all of the challenges and the requests that the county executive and all of you have made for the community. And I also wanted to thank Assistant CAO Sonia Mora for coordinating the selection process for us. This is part of her portfolio, and it was great to work with her to go through all of the many candidates that we have in order to get the outstanding candidate you have before you. And of course, I respectfully request your confirmation of her so that she can take over the library system as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you. Well,
thank you.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. We're going to move on to our next interview, which is of the county executive nominee for Assistant Chief of Police in the Field Services Bureau, David McBain. We'll invite him up. We'll welcome up the chief. And Mr. Madalino, when he's ready. Sure. All right.
Oh, flanked by uniforms.
Chief Yamada and the CAO, welcome. Appreciate you putting this nomination forward. Feel free to share your time equally divided.
Okay, thank you. That's I got that message. So, thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the council. It's my honor to present Dave McBain, our nominee for an assistant police chief position. Dave's roots go very deep in Montgomery County. I was shocked to learn that someone was mayor of Gaithersburg for longer than Councilmember Katz. But it turns out that it was Dave's great-grandfather is the longest-serving mayor in the history of Gaithersburg. That is how far back his family goes. Dave told me when we were sat down to interview him, I was born here. I've gone to school here. I went to Gaithersburg High School. Oh, Richard Montgomery. Sorry. For those of us, kind of in the down county. Okay. All right. Sorry. Richard Montgomery. But I know Chief Yamada went to Wheaton High School. That's for sure. So that Dave said, I was born here. I've worked here. Raised my family here, and I think even said my plan is to die here. So I'm not going anywhere but serving the people of Montgomery County. We know that won't happen for a very long time. But Dave has spent decades now in the police department. He's held a multiple of leadership positions, culminating as commander of the 3rd District, the Silver Spring District, which he spent many years working diligently to address issues through the pandemic and after the pandemic. He has definitely displayed a commitment to the community, leadership within the department, and we are very excited to have him as our nominee for this assistant police chief position, and the county executive would request your confirmation. And I'll turn it over to Chief Yamada, if that's all right.
Thank you, and thank you to the council. Appreciate the opportunity being here with Dave. I've known Dave for the better part of my career, 20 plus years. We were together in narcotics as narcotics detectives. Dave has just consistently demonstrated the ability to make really sound decisions, to leverage his partnerships with the community, with the business community, with the county council. He makes us all stronger. He helps me. He is here because he is passionate about this county and about public safety. He is someone who will continue the mission on behalf of you and the county executive. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to present him in this fashion, hopefully to gain the support of the council. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to get into it for someone who is no stranger, apparently, to Montgomery County, and whose family is certainly no stranger to Montgomery County. How has your career prepared you for the position of Assistant Police Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Friedson. First, before I just answer the question, I'd like to thank Chief Yamada for actually submitting my name to the county executive's office and trusting in me to help lead the department. I'd like to thank the county executive and Mr. Madalino, and also Earl Stoddard, who have supported me throughout this venture and worked with me on a lot of things in Silver Spring. And I'd like to also thank you guys, the county council, for all your support over the years. And I just appreciate working with you guys, and appreciate this time to speak with you and explain and convey my commitment to this county. So with that said, as stated by Mr. Madalino, I've been a police officer for 31 years in Montgomery County. In that 31 years, I started at a very early age, young on the department in narcotics. It's where I first met Chief Yamada. And over those 31 years, I was a special assignment team officer. I was a motor officer. I worked in all 6 district stations in some capacity. I've worked in every bureau of the department with the exception of management and budget. That might be a good thing. But the reality of all that and the exposure to the department, and also I've worked in internal affairs for a significant amount of time as well. And the reality is that I had exposure to a lot of different things that the department had to offer. And so whenever I went, especially in a leadership role as an executive into a division, I had an understanding or a grasp of what I was taking over, and I could apply the things I've learned over the years to do the job effectively and ultimately leaving divisions and bureaus better than when I found it. This kind of all culminated to the assignment to the 3rd District, where I will say my whole career, I always said, this is the best job, this is the best job, this is the best job. And it was always hard to leave a position or take a promotional test because of the enjoyment I was having in the divisions or the units I was working in. But I will say that my command of the 3rd District for the last 3+ years really was the highlight of my career. I think it helped me to demonstrate what I had to offer to the county, to the police department. And it also, it helped me think outside of the box. And I took the 3rd District through a lot of tough times with morale, with staffing issues. I did think outside of the box, and I hope that through some of the answers of the questions today, I'll be able to explain to you some of the things that I've done that I want to convey or push to the entire department, because I think, humbly, I think they were really good programs, really good things that I was doing down there, and I think that could be effective on a county-wide display. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there specific challenges you believe the department is facing, and if so, how do you plan to address those challenges?
I think the obvious challenge for the police department right now is staffing, and there's a whole bunch of things that trickle down because of that. But staffing, we have issues. We've seen, decreasing numbers. Although I was very happy to see that our last academy class had 30 Montgomery County police officers in it. Significant difference than we've had in the last few years. But with the staffing issues, really, what it requires us to do is to do more with less. Chief Yamada. We've talked about this before, and as I dealt with different issues in Silver Spring, the answer was never I can't, right? Because you can't say I can't. You have to find a way to get things done. You have to find a way to provide coverage to the entire district. Many of the operations that I was operating in downtown Silver Spring, I was always cognizant that the 3rd District was not just downtown Silver Spring. There was Burtonsville, there was Four Corners, there was Briggs Cheney, Castle Boulevard, different places that I still had to provide a lot of coverage on. And when you start losing officers or your workforce, you have to think outside of the box. You have to be diligent in the way you use overtime and call people in, and also you have to look at ways of kind of multitasking. So one of the ways I did that was I created an Adopt a Neighborhood program. That gave my officers the ability they were on patrol and answering calls for service, but every single day they would call out for approximately 30 minutes and they'd get into the neighborhoods and they would be visible to the neighborhoods, whether it's walking, whether it's going to a shopping center and engaging with the community. So we were able to still do our community engagement, but still provide the services of serving and protecting, right? I think our ultimate number one responsibility is to deter crime and the fear of crime, but there's a whole bunch of other things that go into the job that have to be done. And as we move forward in the coming years, I do believe you're going to see our numbers increase. I think we're doing a great job with recruitment and also retention. And I do appreciate the efforts that the council and the county executive's office have done with our contracts and with incentives for officers to come here. In law enforcement in the DMV, we're all fishing in the same pond, and we've got to be attractive to young people in our community. So staffing is definitely the number one problem. But we're doing a really good job to overcome those issues.
Thank you. Given that many different and diverse needs of the residents and businesses exist, what is your plan to enhance community relations with all of our community members in such a diverse community like Montgomery County?
So when you talk about diversity, I think you've described Silver Spring, and it's something that I embraced from the very beginning, and I recognize that if you're going to address issues both in the business world and in the residential or the communities, you've got to get out and get in the communities. Councilmember Stewart and I, and also Councilmember Mink, boy, there wasn't many nights that we weren't hanging out together in some community group. But the importance of that is that if you get into the community and you establish a strong relationship from the beginning, when something goes wrong, you're not foreign to them. You're coming to them, and they know who you are. So I was able to establish some really strong community alliances, both with our faith leaders, whether it be Father Jordan down at St. Camillus, or Kendra Smith with the AME Kingdom Fellowship, or Reverend Pat with Rainbow Fellowship on Tech Road. I was able to establish strong relationships, and those individuals were able to help me into the community. And so if there was any reluctance, or if there was any barriers between the police and the community, they could invite me in. I saw that best with the engaging the Hispanic or Latino population in Piney Branch and Long Branch. Father Jordan, I think people down there feared him more than me, and he got a lot of attention. So, but anyhow, you have to know your community, and you need to know, what is it that they're lacking? What is their problems? Enclave night was a huge issue that Mr. Jawando and Councilwoman Mink assisted me on and worked on, but Enclave night was Enclave apartment buildings up in White Oak, but they had significant issues with management and rental issues, but that culminated to crime issues, to just quality of life issues, and it also they had food deprivation and security issues, and we were able to get our fingerprint on a lot of these different things. And what I recognize when you're talking about an age of reimagining policing and how police are in the community, it's not just us. We work with HHS, we work with Park and Recs, we work with our interfaith partners and our other private entities in order to try to work together for the common good of a particular community. And so I think I did really put a lot of effort and strong work into developing strong relationships in the community.
Thank you. If appointed, how would you address and promote racial equity and social justice initiatives, both within the department and when delivering public safety services to the community? As part of this answer, please describe your thoughts on the potential RESJ impacts of community policing.
So I first want to talk about the efforts that I think can take place, or what I've either done or feel that we need to do as far as the department is concerned for racial equity and social justice from within our ranks. So it's kind of interesting roundabout way how this applies for my input to the department. But when I did a lot of my community engagement in Silver Spring, whether it was in Piney Branch or whether it was on Veterans Plaza or up in Briggs Cheney, whenever I do these events like the basketball or the futsal programs, not only did I have community engagement with me, but I had recruitment with me. The reality is, and we say it all the time, but I feel like I was doing it all the time, is we need to recruit from within our community. And the ultimate goal is that our department is a reflection of the community we serve. I don't just say that as a talking point. It's something that I've given a lot of thought to. But the interesting thing is that when I brought recruitment in, not only did I bring them into the mix with community engagement, but the way that because I was going into primarily black and brown communities, and so how was I going to appeal to these young kids in the communities? Well, one, I teamed up with local leaders who were of Latino or African American cultures or diversity, but two, I worked with our department's Explorer program and Cadet program, and ultimately it comes back to what our number one issue is with the county, with the police department, that's recruitment. Because my thoughts is that by working and introducing the Explorer program and Cadet program to these young kids in the community, we were getting them first. We were grabbing onto these kids that were from our community. We were exposing them to what we had to offer in these different programs. It's kind of like the Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and then the Eagle Scouts, right? So that was my philosophy, is get a hold of these kids and try to attract them to stay in the county and stay with the police department. And the reality is that what I was attracting was minority youth in our community. So I think that was something that I think we're going to see the results of that, although it's going to be hard to quantify that in the future. But I feel like there's kids out there that I've reached with these tactics that will someday pay off. And then as far as, when I was a commander in 3D, I had a whole bunch of lieutenants over the years. It seemed like I was the only one that didn't move on, but I had some. Seemed like I had a lot of lieutenants that would come and go. But my goal all the time was to lead these executives up. My job is to mentor the next generation. I've got 31 years on. I'm not going to be around here. I'm not going to be a Lieutenant Jaycox. But anyway. My goal is to lead up, to mentor, and to teach the people under me. And it didn't matter who they were, but specifically speaking, I had 3 female lieutenants that worked for me over the years. And it doesn't matter who they were. But the interesting thing is, in a roundabout way, when you become a lieutenant, the last thing you want to do is to stay at a district station forever and ever and ever and ever. It's kind of like when you get promoted, you typically go to a station, and then you strive to get into a specialized unit. Well, I'm proud to say that all 3 of those female lieutenants are now no longer at the Silver Spring station or 3D station, but they're in specialized roles throughout the county in our academy as an XO or administrative lieutenant for one of the assistant chiefs, and also overseeing major crimes, which my part in that is that when they worked for me, I challenged them, but I also told them that I had their back. I would protect them. I would take care of them. I would, if they failed at something, I would help them out. But that is something that when you're talking about racial equity and things like that, is to give everybody a fair shot at moving up the ladder and to take the promotional test and to move on and lead this department in the future. And so I think I did that. Real quick, because I know I was long-winded on that one, but when it comes to the community, if you think about it, when you review the 21st century policing and the 6 pillars of law enforcement, or what law enforcement should really do to be positive in the community, you've got to engage all your communities. But more importantly, you have to be legitimate in the community. And if you're not legitimate, then you don't have them. And you've got to prove that you actually care. And I think the fact that I was out there every single night, I think for like the first 6 months in 3D, my wife thought my hours were 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. But it was, I put a lot of effort in my relationship with different communities. And again, these were minority communities. They were black and brown communities. And I infused a ton of effort, a ton of resources, and tried to provide them with a way out. And I think ultimately that's our goal, is to give them a way out. And sometimes that's the toughest thing. And so I pride myself in the fact that I never gave up on the community engagement. And again, I'll say that when you're in the community before the event, it's a lot better when something goes wrong, because you know it's going to go wrong. So I've been very appreciative of the community relationships that I built, and I'm very proud of how that looks.
Thank you. Are there any current or potential conflicts of interest of which the council should be aware?
No, sir.
Besides your great-grandfather and your Richard Montgomery alumni status.
Go Rockets.
We'll leave out. Speaking of that potential conflict, the chair of the Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Dave, it's good seeing you.
Thank you,
and
sir.
I mean that sincerely. I appreciated your answers, and I'm not shocked by any of them. I want to congratulate Chief Yamada for nominating you. You're certainly the right person for the job that you've been nominated for. And of course, we couldn't help but notice your family is here.
Yeah.
I didn't know your great-grandfather. He was mayor before I was born, though he was mayor longer than I was mayor in Gaithersburg. But I truly did know your aunts, your great-aunts and uncles, and probably saw them more than you did, because some of them were in the store every day giving me advice. And of course, I knew your father. We joined a Masonic organization at the same time and had good conversations with him as well. I know your sister certainly moved up through the ranks in the sheriff's department. But to be very clear, your family has saved lives in Montgomery County for generations. And I know very, very well that Silver Spring was not easy for you to do. And you certainly followed some real tradition there. Chief Jones, I know, was there, and I want to publicly say that I think that Captain Kokinas, who's the acting, I guess, commander there, is doing a wonderful job as well in a very difficult times at times. But I know that you know what we need in Montgomery County. I know that you are not shy in telling us what we need to know in Montgomery, what we need to do in Montgomery County. And I just want to very publicly say that I know that your family and your father is very proud of what you've done for all of us, and I look forward to voting for you. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Well, I'm next, and I don't have as much to say as Councilmember Katz. We don't go that far back, but we have been working very closely together over the last couple of years, and I just want to say thank you. I think the nomination for Assistant Chief is very well deserved. We will miss you in the Silver Spring area, but I am glad to see Captain soon to be Commander, hopefully, Kokinas, working with him. But you've left a great foundation for us in the community, working with the residents, working with the businesses. And so I have all the confidence that we will continue because of the work that you've done already. And I just want to say thank you for that and look forward to working with you in your new role.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vice President Stewart. Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for being willing to take on this responsibility. It's a lot, and I know that, but I also know you to be tenacious. And I know that the Community Engagement Division falls under the division you are currently the acting chief for, and Knockwood, soon to be confirmed. Yes. And that's an area that I know you and I have spent considerable time talking about positive youth development, and you have a long history of community engagement and outside the box thinking and how to do that. And a couple of things that fall under that community engagement division that are really important to me. Well, I want to say peer support for our officers first, because overall I have a deep invested interest in mental and behavioral health. crisis response falls under that.
Right.
And so does our community engagement officer program. And so I wanted you to talk briefly about, how you envision those three things moving forward under your leadership.
So first, I'll talk about the CEOs and our footprint in Montgomery County Public Schools. Before the school year began, I was really encouraged by meeting with Dr. Taylor from MCPS, a very impressive individual. And I think the fact that now Mr. Jones is working for Montgomery County Public Schools, we have a strong relationship that's already in place for what that footprint looks like. And I think the most important thing there was that it was consistent across the board, that our CEOs were in the high schools, that they had office space, that they were available to students or staff, recognizing though that we're not patrolling the halls, we're not taking part in any type of disciplinary situation. We're simply there for safety, for communication, for outreach to help the school system. And I also recognize that MCPS has a huge infrastructure of other support, whether it's the principals or staff or security. And the goal is to work kind of in unison for the best of the children. And so moving forward, the best thing or the most important thing I feel that I've given direction to Captain Satinsky with community engagement, who oversees the CEOs, is communication. We don't want to wake up in the morning getting the unknown, like, oh, that happened. We've got to be working together. We've got to be communicating any issues, good or bad, and dealing with that. And we have policies set up and MOUs where we do notify the school system for certain things, and there's some things we don't, but we're all on the same page, which I think is most important. So that's the CEOs. Crisis intervention. So, I think for many, many, many years, and just only recently, we looked at crisis intervention as a responsive response, right? Through crisis intervention. So if somebody was having an issue or a bad day or situation, we would deploy out, usually with our officers first, but then we would try to apply some CIT officers or crisis intervention team officers, and then we would work with MCOT, with our mobile crisis teams from HHS. I'm really excited that we've created the behavioral assessment unit. Although very small unit, again, going back to staffing, it's got to grow. And so, but that is our response to a proactive response to mental health or mental crisis and things like that. And we're able to identify persons that are having chronic issues and trying to deal with them and help them and get them the help that they need before it becomes a crisis. And so I'm really happy to see that. And then finally, when we look at emergency responses to either lone barricades or crisis situations that require an emergency response call out, not only do we have our crisis negotiators, but we're leaning more on HHS and the mobile crisis team to also respond with us. Right. So that the goal there is that you put more of the experts together, because we can draw from our weaknesses and or the things that we know best, and we take more of a holistic approach with HHS as part of the team as opposed to off to the side. And I think moving forward, that's going to be very important. In the brief amount of time that I've been in this acting role, we've had MCOT come out to 2 separate barricades, and they were not only in the command bus, but they were at the scene of the barricade. And so I think we're already seeing where it works. I think we have we have to figure out, how much HHS wants to get involved, but I think it's going to be a good relationship moving forward. And then I have to say, well, there's one more.
Peer support.
So, peer support is, listen, this county needs officers that are healthy, both physically and mentally, right? The last thing you need is an officer that's not doing well to come to your house or to deal with any situation. So, not only is it important for crisis when bad things happen, but we have to be paying attention to our officers in the daily, in the everyday. As the 3rd District Commander, I went to a lot of roll calls, and there was times where you would sit in there and you would see an officer that just didn't look right. And sometimes all they need to do is just have a little conversation with you, and you made sure they're all right. But I have to say that in 3 years, I've sent officers home because I didn't feel like they were ready to go on the street. And I have that authority through administrative leave, but it's important to say, you don't look right, and I don't care. Go home, and I'll pay for it. And I think, moving forward, we have to encourage our directors and our commanders and our captains to recognize the stresses that are on our officers because they're huge. And I think even the county executive has recognized that, the number of traumatic events that a person sees in their life is very small, but an officer sees 800-900 of these events, and eventually they cause an impact. And so we just need to, again, not be reactive, but be proactive to help our police officers out.
Thank you. I appreciate your responses, and I appreciate all that you do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Commander McBain, or should I say Assistant Chief Acting McBain. You go by many titles, and I can attest to my colleagues and your presence all across the community. We thank you for your long-time service, especially at a time where we are seeing dwindling recruitment numbers. I think there was a mention of over 200 vacancies in our police department. So for all the millions tuning in, please learn more about our police force. And so I did want to ask, as a member of the Health and Human Services Committee, the 2023 Community Health Needs Assessment showed that mental health is the most important issue to residents and stakeholders here in the county. We've also seen a disproportionate rise in police-involved shootings when individuals in mental health crises seek help and dispatch law enforcement in response. According to a recent study by Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions, incidents involving mental or behavioral health conditions accounted for 23% of all shootings. Injuries related to behavioral health needs were more likely to be fatal, with 67% of those shootings resulting in fatalities. As a potential assistant chief of police, you will oversee complex field operations like SWAT, Special Event Response Team, K-9, Crisis Negotiations, Security Services. That's all security officers and contractual security in the county. Central Traffic Division and Community Engagement. That's a lot.
That is.
And so thank you to my colleague, Councilmember Lutke, for asking the question I had planned to ask. So instead, I would like to expand on the behavioral assessment unit you mentioned. How does it differ from what existed in the county beforehand? And can you expand on how the police department will proactively implement crisis intervention strategies when dealing with individuals in mental health crises? Specifically, I'm interested in learning about the de-escalation techniques used to ensure the safety of the individual without resorting to fatal harm or excessive use of force.
Yes, ma'am. As I indicated when I was answering the last question, when you look at crisis intervention, we have crisis intervention team officers who are real-time responders and are knocking down or dealing with things that are happening right away. the behavioral assessment unit is more of an investigation unit. So people are coming on their radar that we have concern with, or someone in a family, or even another branch of county government has concerns, whether it be HHS at Progress Place or any place in particular throughout the county, where we do an investigation to figure out who is this person, have we had encounters with them before? If we've had encounters with them before, what was the outcome, what worked, what didn't work, and ultimately come up with a solution to provide that person help. A lot of times we try to make it voluntary, but sometimes we get to the point where it becomes involuntary and we take them into custody through an emergency petition to get them the help that they need. So the biggest difference there with behavioral health unit and the CIT is that one is an investigator, where the other is dealing with the real time happenings of an event. And
de-escalation.
So de-escalation. So we've said this a lot, and we pound this into our officers all the time. But training, right? So any time that you have an emergency response call out for a barricade or some type of situation like that, it's already horrible. It's bad, right? Especially if you have a hostage, and so. We have a very good plan set in place where we have a complete call out of not only our special weapons assault teams, but we have multiple negotiators. We have our mobile crisis team, there as well, and we have we have the ability to slow these things down and try to work through them. But ultimately, we're dealing with somebody who's in a mental crisis, and so ultimately what we're doing is we're leaving all of our options open for a safe outcome. Because not only are we responsible to try to keep the offender safe, but oftentimes when there's a hostage, we have a responsibility to keep that hostage safe as well. And sometimes tough decisions have to be made, but it's not without going through the process and going over and over and over and exhausting all efforts to end it safely.
Okay. Well, I look forward to more discussions on de-escalation techniques, and looking forward to you assuming your new role.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McBain, Acting Assistant Chief, which is a long title, so we can get rid of that first word in a little bit. I appreciate the question that Councilmember Luedtke asked about school safety. As school has begun, we want to make sure that both our students and educators are able to teach and learn in a safe environment. One of the most sacred things that we can do. So I know you've been working on that and will continue in this new role, have that part of your portfolio. Another aspect of your portfolio, something that you know very well, is about traffic. Yes, you were the traffic division director for a period of time, a little more than a year or two. In the last 6 months, or the first 6 months of 2024, we have already had 259 pedestrians involved in crashes, 76 cyclists who've been hit, 19 scooters involved in crashes, and 7 people who have been fatally injured.
Yes, sir.
Far too many. And I know you've been doing a lot of work in that regard. We recently received the Automated Traffic Enforcement Plan, which either the T&E Committee or the T&E and Public Safety Committee can have a conversation about. Incredibly important aspect of street safety. Yes, as we know, we don't have enough officers to see all the issues that are on our streets, but we can have more automated eyes looking out. And so can you share a little bit more, having served in a very close role here, but now in this new leadership capacity that you will be having, talk about street safety and what we have to do here in Montgomery County to make it safer?
Yes, sir. So I would say that the captain of the traffic division is, unfortunately, he's got a bureau chief whose wheelhouse is traffic, and I'm pretty passionate about my thoughts of how we address some of these issues. Since becoming the acting role that I'm in now, I directed our traffic division to begin 2 pedestrian safety initiatives per month at various locations, primarily in our central business districts in Silver Spring and Bethesda. And those are to address vehicular violations towards the pedestrian. Now, the interesting thing is 2 days prior to that detail, I had 4 cadets. A lot of our cadets work in our buildings, and I feel like that's a waste of a resource. And they have uniforms, and I assign an officer to them to kind of babysit them or just watch over them because they're not armed, obviously. But those cadets went out to known locations where we had significant pedestrian collisions, whether it's minor or fatal collisions. And they did an education component. Instead of paying a motor officer an extremely large amount of money to hand out flyers, I utilize these cadets to do the same thing and to get the same message out. And it exposed our cadets to what it's like to be a police officer. So they did that, and we started doing these initiatives. In addition to that, I've consolidated a lot of our efforts with our traffic safety, and there's 5,000 miles of roadway in Montgomery County. I think we're hitting like a fifth of it, right? And I've looked at some of the data. Where we are, we're making an impact, but we need to be more places. And so we're starting to diversify where we're hitting these high incident networks. And not only are we hitting our primary networks, but we're also hitting our secondaries, kind of like our east-west corridors, east-west highway, Redland Road, different roadways that aren't so significant or major arterials, but still have a significant impact on roadway safety, specifically and especially for our bicyclists and our pedestrians. So we're doing, definitely, we're never going to get out of the business of traffic safety with humans, with police officers. It's critical, and I'm so proud of these guys, the motor officers that we have. You know, to use an old term from previous leaders of the department, they are the tip of the spear for this safety. But in addition to that, as you said, especially because of our staffing issues, we need to expand automation, right? And right now we have a pretty significant footprint in speed and red light. I just met today, but this has been in the works for since July when I got here. But we have the ability to turn on other types of automation like speed on green, which I'm not going to get too deep in it, but basically our red light cameras can also do speed. Because what I've recognized is that we see collisions because people start increasing their speeds to beat the light. So we have the ability now that when somebody does that and fails to get through the red light, regardless, if they get through the light but they speed, they get a speeding ticket. But if they violate the red light, then they get the red light citation. We don't double tap them. They don't get both. But we have the ability to turn all these cameras on if we want. However, just to be smart about this, to roll it out incrementally, we've picked the top 5 locations in Montgomery County where the data suggests that we're having crashes at intersections to do this speed on green. So that's one of the technologies that we need to turn on. Probably what I think's the neatest technology that's coming out, and that Montgomery County is going to be on the, if we can get this done, is distracted driving. And we're working with a vendor right now. We're actually collecting data as we speak in 3 locations in Montgomery County where we're utilizing this technology to track distracted driving. The interesting thing with these cameras is not only does it do distracted, but it also does pedestrian safety where vehicles that once again are not yielding to pedestrians. And so you can actually apply seatbelt as well, but but we're kind of slow rolling this and having this emerge. But this is probably the future of automation. I'm pretty excited about these locations that were selected for the automated distracted driving, and we've given them the company we're working with. We've given them locations in all over the county so that we can make sure that we're hitting all of our communities, not just our denser populations. But we've also we've selected locations where pedestrians are getting struck, and so I'm pretty excited to be able to share with you that data as it comes, because I believe we're going to have to do some legislative work on this, and I'm sure we're going to be working on that, because I'm going to need you to help get that across the board in Maryland or in Annapolis. And so there's some neat technologies there. So I wouldn't have said that 5 years ago, but automation is where we have to go in order to keep our roadways safe, so that our officers can answer calls for service and crime. So pretty excited about how that looks.
I appreciate that thorough answer.
Yep.
And the reality is we do need more help from Annapolis in order to increase our efforts here.
Yep.
There are some leadership changes that have occurred or are occurring in the General Assembly that I think will get us toward the goal that we need, and look forward to that legislation being passed. Also appreciate the data-informed decision-making, incredibly important. We know where the problem spots are, so let's address those problem spots. Look forward to a deeper dive with the Public Safety Committee and the T&E Committee on this issue at some point. But thank you very much, and I look forward to continuing work with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Malcolm.
Thank you. I'm going to borrow a statement from the Public Safety Chair. Everything that can be said has already been said, but just not by me. So I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you to your family. We know that this is a dangerous job, and we appreciate the families of our police department and all of our first responders. So I just wanted to say thank you.
With that, I do want to just say my wife's here with me today, and my mom, and my sister, retired Assistant Sheriff of Montgomery County, and her husband. So thank you.
Welcome to your family, and thank you for your sacrifice. We know that it's a tremendous sacrifice that families take on, not just individuals who serve in these roles. So we appreciate it, and we thank you for that. To close this out with our questions virtually, Councilmember Mink.
Thank you, Council President. And it was truly a pleasure working with you as Commander of 3D. And as you mentioned, we did many community meetings together of varying temperatures, and you always handled it beautifully and with real collaboration. And I really appreciate that. You were also consistently a very responsive partner working with my office regarding a wide range of different constituent questions and concerns that we fielded together. And like Vice President Stewart noted, that experience working with you at the district level really gives me great confidence about the role before you. So while I am sorry to see you go, of course, we're in good hands in 3D with Captain Kokinos, but I know that you'll continue to be a great contributor. Quick question. So in addition to automation, which you just touched on, I know you've also spoken about the importance of civilianization as one of the many strategies we need to use to address our staffing issues. Is that something that you're thinking about within field services?
Yes. I think I can talk about this, but I really I feel like we're trying to get law enforcement out of things that we don't necessarily need to be in. And I think one of those things could possibly be parking enforcement. And that takes up a significant amount of time for our officers. That's, in fact, down in Long Branch, it's almost one of the biggest complaint that we're dealing with. But we have significant parking issues all over, and I think that could be addressed with a civilianized force. And obviously we would support that and back it up should there be problems. But, if you look across the country at some of these bigger cities, they rely on civilianized parking enforcement. So that's one aspect. But but then when you're looking at, so special operations is under my bureau, you're looking at the drone as a first responder. There is no doubt in my mind we're going to expand that program. I'm not so sure you need that many police officers as much as you need, individuals that understand the technology and how to fly and how we work with the drones. I do think that you need a law enforcement component there for legal reasons, but I think we can civilianize much of what we're doing there, and then that leads to FUSIS and Montgomery County Connect, and how we're taking all these camera systems and we're taking our real-time crime center that right now is being is occupied by retired police officers, but I think we have the ability to do a lot of crime fighting with the technology, and the crime fighters don't have to be police officers. They can be civilianized, and it keeps our police officers out on the street.
Appreciate that. Well, I'll just say thank you for your partnership over the last 2 years, and I look forward to voting for you and to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the county executive and the CAO putting this forward. We will be in touch. Obviously, you can hear there's quite a bit of support, and you're quite a known quantity among the members of this dais. You have made your great-grandfather proud, and the city of Gaithersburg, and I won't get involved in the RM versus Gaithersburg high school rivalry, and I'm told my wisdom is growing, although it's limited. With that, really appreciate you joining us. That's the last item on today's agenda. Let me turn it over to the CAO for a very brief final word.
Thank you very much, Council President Friedson. I'm sorry about the high school mistake. As a Georgetown Prep graduate, I've made more than one mistake about high schools. I want to thank Assistant Chief Parker Lone, who is here together with Assistant Chief Parker Lone, Assistant Chief Augustine, Assistant Chief Frank, with Chief Yamada. They make up an amazing leadership team for this police department. I know you all, I believe, are proud of them. The county executive, I certainly are. It's an honor to work with all of these women and men in the police department each and every day who keep our community safe. And we should be so appreciative that there are so many people willing to put their lives on the line and their families to back them up. I want to thank Assistant CAO Earl Stoddard and certainly Tricia Swanson, our Director of Strategic Partnerships, for all of her work with all of you. Greatly appreciate all of your staff time, your office time of setting up all these meetings and moving forward these outstanding nominees. And I think I'll be before you with yet another one next week, hopefully, or in the next 2 weeks with Ms. Martine for behavioral health. So we are thrilled to be making progress on all of these nominations. And of course, the county executive, I respectfully ask for your confirmation.
We appreciate it. As noted, the council, as it has and as is the tradition, moves expeditiously on moving forward the county executive's nominees, which we look forward to continuing to do. And with that, colleagues, with thanks, we are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.